uh, of the organization here, and we publish a magazine quarterly. I'm sure most of you have seen it, if not read it. Tonight's speaker is Pamela Golden. Pam's an old friend of mine. We've known each other for quite a few years now, and she is very articulate in acupuncture and the use of light therapy for healing and making oneself feel better. She was trained in Sri Lanka as an acupuncturist, and now she specializes in phototherapy. And she's also been a guest on our radio show, the Exotic Research Radio Hour. Let's give a warm welcome to Pam Golden.
Okay, first, guys, my little microphone fell off. Hang on. All right, I'm back on here. Can you hear me? Is that right? Thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity. I was Steve's first guest on his Exotic Radio show, so that was kind of fun. This was unexpected, so I don't have the research I normally do. If I mention some research that you really want to see, I'd be happy to supply it later. As Steve said, I've been an acupuncturist for 10 years. My story starts 10 years ago. I was in a car accident. I had a whiplash. I was in extreme pain for about a year, and I tried everything the medical establishment had offered me. I tried chiropractic, I tried physical therapy, I had massages twice a week. I was in extreme pain. I was raising 2 children. I really was running out of options. I finally got desperate enough to try acupuncture, and in one treatment, I had a lot of relief. I'd say 50% relief in one treatment. And it really excited me. So I decided to get more interested in acupuncture. I looked in the yellow pages in Phoenix. At that time, there were 4. Now there are 4 pages of acupuncturists. So 10 years ago was a big difference. So I checked around at the different schools, and I found a university in Sri Lanka, and I flew there. I flew over to Sri Lanka, second world nation, and I took my training there because Arizona is one of the last states that doesn't have an acupuncture board. So I was able to train out of the country and come back and begin my trade. I wanted to be trained where they had done acupuncture for a number of years, and the AMA didn't have their fingers involved in my training. While I was over there, it was really interesting because it was a second world nation. Here, everybody is so worried about the needles being sterile. When I have pictures of the acupuncture school in Sri Lanka, and everybody's outside. The clinic is outside. The natives show up, 400 or 500 natives show up every day for free acupuncture because they know people like me are there training. So the deal is they don't pay us because they know we're training. But they were outside with dogs and cats and bugs all over them with these needles. And it was quite interesting. So I took my video camera into the clinic to film this because I knew people in the United States, they weren't going to believe this. Unsanitary conditions around the needles kind of thing. So I'm filming with this video camera, and over in the corner I noticed this doctor with looked like a laser beam shining at a man's foot. So I wandered over there with my camcorder, and I remember taking my head around the camcorder, and I saw in front of my eyes, this is in 1989, I saw a red laser beam on a deep open wound, and I saw a layer of skin form in front of my eyes in about 45 seconds. And I threw this $1,700 camcorder down. I remember thinking, this is Star Trek. I cannot believe this. I grabbed this unit, and it was made in Prescott, Arizona, which is I live in Yarnell, Arizona, so it was about 30 miles from where I now live. It was made there, and I'm 12,000 miles from home. When I said to the doctor, I said, what is this? He very calmly looked at me, and he said, it's a cold laser. Like, of course, don't you know this? And I was just absolutely stymied. I ran around the clinic crazy, asking everybody about these cold lasers. What the story was there was a Dr. Frederick Plogue in Prescott, Arizona, back in the 70s, the late 70s. And he noticed that the cells right next to the incisions, where the hot lasers were doing the cutting, the cells were healing very quickly. So he took a laser and he pulled the power way back, and he called it a cold laser, and he started doing research, and he sent like 6 units over to Sri Lanka. Well, in 1989, only 1 was left, and I found it. And I did a lot of research and playing with it in Sri Lanka while I was there. Everybody, by the way, there were doctors there from Scandinavia, Pakistan, Australia, Germany. I can't even name all the countries. These doctors all knew about cold lasers. Only the people from the United States didn't know what they were. We were the only ignorant ones there. So the more I got into it, the more research showed that it didn't have to be a cold laser. It didn't have to be a laser. It was the monochromatic light, single wavelength light, and they were using the light in place of the needles. They actually photographed in Europe that a single wavelength of light would travel through the meridians in the body. So that's where they started using the laser and using LEDs. They kept saying, LEDs, you know what LEDs are? Well, back then I didn't know that it's a light-emitting diode. So we were using LEDs and lasers in place of needles on different applications and different medical conditions. And I bought one. The very first one I bought in Sri Lanka was 1,500 millicandles. So it was very low powered. It cost me $80. I brought it home, and I was so excited about it. And I started using it on my friends and my first patients. And when someone came in with a wound, I wanted it to do what I had seen that laser do. So I kept using it and using it. In maybe 45 minutes, I might get something. So anyway, I found an engineer who had heard about this research, and he was making some LEDs in his garage. Only his LED was 2,000 millicandles. So it was a little bit higher. And I thought, well, that's where we'll go. We'll go higher in the LEDs. So I contracted with this engineer, and I started working with him as an acupuncturist. And as the market went up and the LEDs got stronger, I would make more prototypes. My house looks like a museum of prototypes. I could probably fill a room with them. And I went up to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,000. When I got to 6,000 millicandles, and I was using them on wounds and pain and that type of thing, I noticed a big difference. I was getting closer to the effect that I got with the laser. It wasn't just the acupuncture effect. There was actually some type of resonating effect happening. So I called the university in Sri Lanka, and I told them what I had found, and I said, move up in power. The power is up to 6,000 now, and the millicandles are up to 6,000. I advised them to get more prototypes in that range. So it was really interesting. I had been an acupuncturist 2 years then, and they invited me to speak at the World Congress of Alternative Medicine in Madras, India. And they said, that's very good, come speak. So I did. I flew over to Sri Lanka, or to Madras, India, actually, in 1991, and I stood up in front of 600 doctors, alternative doctors from all over the world. I had 15 minutes to tell them what I had done. My knees shook so bad I could hardly speak. And when it was all over, I was amazed at the response I got. It's not like here when you make a discovery and you have to tiptoe around and you have to find the right people to talk to and share it with. Over there, it was very open. I received 2 medals for this, and I was invited to speak and work all over the world. I still get invitations for this. It's a different world out there. They are really looking for answers, and they're open to anyone's discoveries. It doesn't matter if I've been an acupuncturist 6 months or not. So what that did for me is it took my fear away that I was actually on the right track. So when I came back to the United States, not only did I continue my research, I started marketing. And I marketed in a little square box with a toggle switch on it. I started selling it and sharing with people, and people would buy this little LED, same type of unit, only less power than I have now. And I was getting incredible feedback. I started going to all kinds of health shows and different science science conventions and sharing this information and having the opportunity to use it on a number of different applications. So people would come in the booth. I put a big sign up that said, pain relief demonstration. So people would come in with all types of pain. It would be headache, toothache, toenail. It doesn't really matter. What we're finding is that the body is energy, and we respond to frequencies. And the frequency that I've worked with for the last 10 years is 660 nanometers. We found some research that shows that the cell, a healthy cell, is similar to that frequency. So what we did was we got a solid beam, and we started using a solid beam on pain and swelling. And it acted like the needles do when you do a sedation. You do sedation needles, you calm things down. So the solid beam was like sedation. The pulse beam was like stimulation. It called more circulation into the area. So we used a pulse beam on cuts and wounds. We used a solid beam on pain and swelling, getting really nice results. Well, over the last 5 years, I've taken it up to about 15,000 millicandles, and that's what I've got right here, right now. This is about 15,000. It's a nice big beam. It'll go through your finger. It'll go through bone. If it were dark in here, you could see it all the way through my wrist. So it's kind of, it penetrates pretty deep. And since then, the research has really come across. We've been collecting research for the last 10 years. And actually, Russia has done the most research that I've found. Russia has actually developed units where they draw blood out of the body. Now, they don't use just red, of course. They use all types of frequencies and wavelengths. But they draw blood out of the body, and there's a Dr. William Campbell Douglas. Anybody here heard of him? That's somebody that I would like to have speak at one of these conventions. William Campbell Douglas went to Russia and studied for a year, and he learned to draw blood out of the body, run it through a machine with ultraviolet light, and re-inject it into the body, killing AIDS and cancer in one application. It's pretty exciting stuff. He was treating people here in the United States, and of course, that didn't last very long. Last I heard, he was treating in the Cayman Islands. So, photoluminescence. Thank you, Steve. I can give you more information on him at home, but I have his phone numbers. He's also written a book called Into the Light. There's a lot of information coming out now that's available, and people can see that this is not something that, it's just not whim. We've been able to collect research, and there's a lot of books out here. Our own country, I have found research that's probably 15 years old, and this is in Roswell in New York, as well as Baylor, where they're using light in connection with chemicals. They call it sorolin, and sorolin is a chemical developed from a plant called rue, which is an herb. And they inject the sorolin, and the sorolin will stay in the cancer cells longer than in the healthy cells. So the healthy cells will slough it off, and then they apply red light, and the red light will activate the sorolin, and it becomes toxic to the cancer. So 15 years ago, I started finding research that Roswell was actually working on cancer with red light. We've been collecting this for quite some time now, and now just recently a physicist went on the radio. I have a copy of the radio show in Colorado, and he's calling for brain tumors, malignant brain tumors, to treat. And they do the same thing. They inject a chemical into the brain, or into the body. It collects in the brain tumor. They give it one shot of red light, and they say there's no side effects, and it's killing these brain tumors. So it's really come a long way from the time that I started on it. Back to what I do is I just take the lay person and I teach them how to use this red light to balance their own bodies, to treat themselves. If you keep your body, an acupuncturist's job is to keep the energy moving in your body and balanced, okay? The fastest way to do this with this red light is to apply it to every fingertip and toe tip for about 30 seconds. It opens up all the meridians, it gets the energy going, and the body is able to heal itself with its own energy. Now, there's another application, of course, and that is the resonating effect we've been talking about. So when somebody has a wound, let's say they've cut themselves, well, they're in pain a little bit, so you put it on a solid beam and you get it calmed down. Then you put it on a pulse beam. Pulse beam calls circulation into the area, and we've seen wounds heal 5 to 7 times faster than normal. Another key of this is that somehow it activates the original blueprint of the cell because you don't have a scar. If you use the light on burns and cuts on a consistent basis as it's healing, there's no scar involved. I did a radio show recently out of Colorado, and a man called in that had a chi light, and his neighbor told him about it. The neighbor had had a 3rd-degree burn. The doctor told him it would take 6 months to heal. And the man testified on this radio show that he used the light every day and healed it in 6 weeks instead of 6 months, and he didn't have a scar. So we've been trying to get bigger units for larger areas. It's taken me 8 years to produce this. It's taken that long. I now have a bigger unit that I'm coming out with in the future. Anybody, let's see if I can get this in here. I don't know if you can see that in this light. But this is a new unit that we're going to be able to use on the body, strap on the body. It'll have a timer. It'll turn itself off. It'll be solar rechargeable. It's going to be a nice unit. It's just, of course, in the prototype stage. But we're really coming along with this a long ways. I want to tell you some of the uses we've found over the years. Of course, the acupressure points also works on reflexology points. Let's say on the hands and the feet, everybody knows that you can correlate the body organs with your hands and feet, so you can treat directly this way. We actually have some of the reflexology schools are teaching how to use the light in connection with the training now. Another thing is stress. I think most of the lay people in our country, the day-to-day life has so much stress in it that we have to have something to keep ourselves balanced and calm. One of the best things about the light is on my grandson or on any animal, you can put the light on the most sedative point on the whole body, which is right here. It's called Do 20. People who have trouble sleeping, people who have trouble with hyperactive children. I took a little boy to a movie one time, and he wouldn't sit still. So I snuck the light up behind him like this for about 30 seconds in the movie theater, and he calmed right down and watched the whole movie. I also had an experience one time with a horse. I went horseback riding, and the horse had cut his back foot, and nobody could get in the stall to treat him because he was very upset and jumping around. And so I experimented, and I went into the stall. It took me about 10 minutes to get the horse to let me put that light on the top of his head, but he calmed down. I took the light down his spine and down into the leg area, and he let me treat the leg. Since then, one of my biggest clients with this light has been veterinarians. They don't worry about the establishment so much. Their clients don't talk or question. So we've had a real good response from the veterinarians treating their clients and animals with the lights. They've given me a lot of clues. In fact, one of the things they told me, when you give an injection, especially with the animals, a lot of times it'll knot up and it has that hard and it's sore. What they do is they put the syringe up next to the animal, and they take the light and spin it in a clockwise manner for about 10 seconds. It'll blend the frequency of that animal with the frequency of the medication. And when they inject it, there is no ball, there is no pain. It just completely absorbs quickly. So that's one of the things they've given me some clues on how to use it. So since then, we've taken that and said, geez, if you have something, sometimes people have migraines, and they don't know what triggers it. So what they do is they start treating all their food and drinks. They put their hand by their plate of food and spin it. They put their fingers in their drink and spin it. And if it's a chemical or a preservative in the food that's causing it, and I'm saying if that's what it is, they get some relief with the migraines and the headaches. That's an interesting one. We also have people who have used it for facial toning. In Europe, they're using these lights for non-surgical facelift. It helps with collagen production within the face. It helps pull circulation in on a pulse beam to help tonify and pull these muscles up. And we just found a unit on the recently that's like $10,000 being produced in Germany. So it's really interesting. They're way ahead of us on the use of these things. Also, sinus problems. When you have allergies, your sinuses are really, really inflamed. So we use a solid beam to calm them down, and it'll actually help people be able to breathe. If their nose is running a lot, we use a pulse beam, calls circulation in. It seems to tone that down. We've had some good results with that. The thing with animals is really interesting because people say, well, someone asked me here at the show, how do you know it's not you? How do you know it's not your intention or your healing ability? I've had that people ask me that for years. But the animals are different. They don't care. I had a phone call from a lady who told me that she walked in the house and found her dog with her bird in his mouth. And she yelled at him, and he opened his mouth, and he dropped the bird. And she said the bird didn't move. She thought for sure it was dead. She said she cried, and she picked it up, and she decided to put the light on it. And she just held it in her hand, and the bird lifted its wing up, like, oh, right here. And so she applied the light on it, and every day when she'd go to treat that bird, it would lift its wing, and the bird lived, and she was just amazed. She said, it's like my dog will even tell me, she'll come up and lay down if she wants a treatment, if I'm using the light, that type of thing. Headaches, it's really interesting with headaches. One of the things we found, and there's somebody here at the conference that I understand is supposed to have live blood cell analysis. This is a good before and after kind of thing, where you can test your blood, and he can actually help you diagnose what's going on. If you're digesting properly, if you have liver stress, this type of thing. And one of the things we found with the before and after with the light is that the light helps the cells carry oxygen longer. So if you apply the light into the belly button for 20 minutes, all the blood in your body will pass right behind your umbilical cord. So all the blood is getting irradiated. Now this is helping also with viruses. We're finding that people can treat their body for viruses. It helps the cells carry oxygen longer, that type of thing. And the live blood cell analysis proved that. That was interesting. Insect bites, bee stings, snake bites, that type of thing. It's very good. When I was in India, the mosquitoes really ate me up over there. And you can apply the light on a pulse beam, and the body will help it, heal it, take the itchiness away, that type of thing. Rashes, eczema, psoriasis, this type of thing, we have very good results of that. Teeth and gums, this is another good one. The dentists are very excited because when you use it on a pulse beam, it calls circulation into the area. So it's helping with the teeth and gum arena. I had a dentist, I went to the dentist, and he found a hole in my gums, and he scheduled me for surgery. He said, I want to do surgery. I said, give me 2 weeks. So I went home and I put the light on. Of course, I did it every chance I got. And within 2 weeks, when I went back, he couldn't find that hole. He almost made a hole looking for it. He kept digging around looking for this hole. But it had reattached to the bone. There's a lot of things that we don't understand and can't explain. I can show you research from all over the world, that type of thing. But it's something new to this country. It's not new around the world. And I think that we're getting to a point where more and more people are open to being able to heal themselves, working on themselves. I think that empowerment it's time for that right now. Are there any questions so far? Yes, Ted. Yes, sir, I'm suggesting that. I'm suggesting that the light working on the gums will help with circulation, which will help the gums fight gingivitis, yes. Bone and depth, meaning?
Below the surface, like you have a fracture.
Oh, yes, yes.
Like in the dental area, you have areas where at the end of the root canal,
Right.
there can be bone loss.
Right. Well, we do have a lady here in Phoenix that called me, and she was having trouble with one of her teeth, and she was told that she needed to have a root canal. And so she used the light and went back within 2 weeks, and the doctor said, I don't know what you're doing, but it is helping. Whatever it is, it's helping. And she hasn't yet to have a root canal. So she's continued to use it, and it's fought the infection. And as far as bone healing is concerned, yes, anytime you can draw circulation into the area, I think it helps with that quite a bit. Yes, ma'am. Pardon me? When can you buy one from me? I have these in the next room. I don't have this big one. This was in the prototype stage. We're just playing with that. But the Chi Light has been available now for like, 2 years, 2.5 years. I've exhibited at Global Science and Tesla Society. At Tesla Society was really fun. This was like, I think it was 2 years ago. I had a booth there, same kind of thing. And a man came up to the booth and he said, does this help with carpal tunnel? And I said, sure, let me see your hand. So I applied the light on carpal tunnel. You apply the light on solid beam right here, and then there's another point right here. So I applied these for about 10 minutes. He had not been able to touch these two fingers together in months. And in one application, he was running around the Tesla Society like this, telling everybody, go, oh, you're not going to believe this, go do it. And I sold out in 2 days. In 2 days, they auctioned off my last demonstrator light because they wanted them rather than take orders. So it was really good. I got more than I'd ever gotten for a light at that show. Any other? Yes, after the talk, yes. The normal price is $169. The show price is $149. The other thing I wanted to mention is there's a 30-day money-back guarantee because this is new to us, and I want you to feel comfortable playing with it. We've never seen anything negative. I've never seen anything in 10 years. I've done everything wrong I can possibly think of doing wrong to me. I've slept with it, I've overused it, I've done everything I can think of wrong, and I've never seen anything negative. Yes, sir, in the back.
What results do you have? Let's say if you have a fractured bone, it doesn't heal. Is there any categorical tests that show that it does work to heal a bone?
He's asking if we can heal a bone that's having trouble, a fractured bone that's having trouble healing. I can only, this is where I'm safe, and I can say, gee, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee, you can tell me, because I really don't know of any specifically that has trouble healing. Circulation, of course, will help. People with diabetes really receive a lot of help with healing, like wounds on their feet, that type of thing. It's very important to them. And we talked about before, one of the interesting things is scar tissue. We've worked on scar tissue that are 5 and 10 years old, and within a month, the scar tissue comes down to a real thin, nice level. I have a good testimonial. A lady here in Phoenix went to a chiropractor that had one of my lights, and she had had a hip replacement and 5 years before, and the scar tissue had built itself up to a point where it was causing her to limp. And the chiropractor had remembered that I said it worked on scar tissue, and he loaned her the light for 10 days. Well, it helped her so much in 10 days that she wanted a light. Well, he wasn't willing to sell her his light, and he wasn't a distributor. So she bugged this man for 4 months, this chiropractor for 4 months, until he finally gave her my name, and she bought a light, and within 30 days, that scar tissue was flat enough so that it didn't hinder her walking. She, since then, got several other women together, and they formed a little group called the Light 5, and they march around Sun City and teach people about this red light. One of the women has pictures where 1/3 of her ear had been eaten away by something. And she used the light every single morning for 1 year. Not only did this something go away, her ear grew back. We have pictures of that one. She also, when I went to check on her, I looked at her and something, there goes this thing again. Something was really strange about her face, and I finally realized by doing one of these that the right side of her face that she had treated looked 10 years younger than the other side. when we did that experiment in the mirror, she couldn't believe it. So then, of course, she had to go apply it on this side for a year, get everything balanced out here. Yes, sir.
How does this work on poison ivy?
Poison ivy. My nephew got into something, and it wasn't poison ivy, but it was poison oak maybe, and he got some relief, but not like I was hoping. It wasn't one of those where you could say, "Oh yeah, this is great." It just seemed to not help. Yeah. Yes, sir, Steve. Antibacterial, antiviral. Well, from my viewpoint, when you use it in the belly button, I believe it's antiviral for sure. I have not had a flu or a cold since I started using this, and I'm around a lot of sick people. I don't know about the antibacterial. I do know that if you apply it to an infection, any infection I've seen it applied to, it seems to help. Different frequencies. There's a university in Texas that's using infrared for carpal tunnel and getting very good results. I'm using red. There's some people down that are using like around 620 nanometers and getting some good results. They claim that it's even better as far as DNA is concerned. I really don't know that. I can share some research on that with you. There was somebody else had a question. They're gone. Okay. It's interesting. I'm still learning, of course. The more I use it, the more I learn, and the more feedback I get, the better it is. Nobody can say for sure what's really happening here. We know that it helps with oxygen. We know that it helps with circulation. Russia, like I said, Israel has done some really good research. If I had, let's see, I might even have a little bit of the research here. But I wasn't prepared, or I would have been, you guys. Here's an interesting article. Improvement of pain and disability in elderly patients with degenerative osteoarthritis of the knee treated with narrowband light therapy. Now this one, they actually had two different types of light, and they applied it to the knee. And the 660 nanometer range did very well with pain and swelling. It's quite incredible. I still get excited, you guys. I've been doing this 10 years. And if I see somebody walking around with like a swollen knee or a swollen ankle, something with recent sprain type of thing, I will stop and sit down with them and explain who I am and apply a solid beam just to watch it, because you can see a 50% reduction in front of your eyes in 10 or 15 minutes. It's quite amazing. My daughter touched the stove and got a blister in 10 minutes right in front of your eyes. The blister goes down. It's something that you have to experience to believe, because we just are not used to this type of result and that kind of result, response this quickly. Let's see what else I got here. Any other questions?
Maybe you covered it, but your current model, what do you call it, the 10 light or something?
The Chi Light.
And the one in your prototype, how would the application of those two be different?
How would the applications be different between the Chi Light and the new prototype? Well, the Chi Light's easy, it's portable, you stick it in your purse, and it's got a belt loop so you can take it with you. We actually have you go to Global Science. Were you there the year that that treasure hunter guy was there? It was interesting. There was a guy at Global Science that does treasure hunting all over the world, and he got up to speak. And they introduced him, and he stood up and he said, "Before I even get started, I have something to say here." He said, "Last week I was in Seattle, and a man put a gun to my head, and he stole my vehicle, everything I owned, including my vehicle. And the first thing I had to do is replace that red light that Pam Golden has, because I wouldn't go out in the desert without it." I just couldn't believe it, because he used it on scorpion bites to neutralize the scorpion bites and rattlesnakes. We've actually used it on a man who had a rattlesnake bite. Took 30% of the swelling and 30% of the pain down in half an hour. Those are the times when it's a large injury, something that's really large and consistent. I would like to be able to strap this on the body. Let's say if you have an injury and you've pulled a muscle. Another thing that we have very good response with is herniated discs. That's interesting, because the disc comes out and it swells and it can't go back in. And so we had a lady down, this was last year, last fall, in Tucson, came in with a back brace on. And I used 2 lights because she had 2 discs pulled out. And I applied it for like 10 minutes. And she took this brace off and she started doing pelvic thrusts right there in the booth. I couldn't believe it. It was like she was running around showing everybody, look, I had herniated disc and I can move and I don't have pain, and it popped back in. Now, I'm not saying, I don't want anybody to hear me. I don't say this works with everybody every time. I can't possibly say that. I'm telling you of experiences I've seen and had, and I invite you, anyone, to come in the booth and have an experience. I'll give you a free treatment. See if you can experience it on your pain. That's something that you can, take home with you. And that's my pleasure, is being able to treat different types of toothaches, headaches, backaches, toenails. I don't care what it is. I have great joy and passion in just showing it to you. Like I said, there's some, this is interesting. In one of the papers here, we found some information where it's reported that the Zuni Indians, this is some background, located in the southwestern part of the United States, collected shells from Magic Corn Mountain. The Indians polished the shells, dyed them with indigenous plants of different colors, the colors of the rainbow. They held these colored shells up between themselves in the sunlight and reported miraculous healing effects. So light and color in the Egyptians and the Indians, we've been around light and color healing for centuries, forever. And we've really discounted a lot of it. And I think right now we just found a way to get monochromatic, single wavelength LEDs of all the colors of the chakras. Now, the chakras are energy centers within the body that also move energy. So once we can release these and start moving energy in other ways, we don't know what the effects will be. Any other questions here? Well, guys, I'm sorry. I'm not stretching this out to an hour and a half, but I wasn't prepared, and thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Bye-bye.